All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Touchdown Glass podcast. I am your host, Michael V. Jones. You know, here at the Touchdown Glass, we are keeping it real. No crazy hot takes or agendas, just good old fashioned football talk the way you like it. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Well, before we get started, I should have done this last week. My 6-year-old son, Jack, he just turned 6. So happy birthday, son. You are amazing. You're a gift. Every day is a fun adventure with you, and you make me smile like no other. So I know it was last week, but I had to announce it to the world. Happy birthday, son. And also, too, I lost, or we lost, but I guess for me personally, lost one of my broadcasting heroes in Bob Euchre. Bob Euchre, known as Mr. Baseball. Obviously, he started as a professional baseball player, and he, made jokes about his mediocrity as a professional, right? A 200 batting average. He just had a great sense of humor, just a total unique guy. Um, of course, I think he's most well known to a lot of us from the Major League movies. You may remember his sitcom in the 80s, Mr. Belvedere, but depending on how old you are, if you're a professional wrestling fan, he did some things with the WWF in the 80s and WrestleMania. So and of course, commercials. It was on, I believe, Miller Beer commercials, and of course, the long time uh, radio announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers, known as Mr. Baseball. Bob Euchre passed away at 91. So the world got a little dimmer because he just brought so much laughter and smiles and a lot of good memories to people. So condolences to his family and his quotes and jokes and stuff in the media that's gonna live on forever. All right, so it was wild card weekend, and we will get into that. And we're going to get into, uh, the, and I just want to make a note because I want to talk about it later, and we'll get into that. Um, but we'll get into the Deion Sanders possibility to the Cowboys. What do I think of that? A lot of people have some polarizing opinions on it. You may be surprised somewhat at the take I have, but maybe not because I'm a big Deion fan. And we'll talk about, Mike McCarthy not coming back, Vrabel, uh, taking the New England job, the other opening jobs. Titans got a new GM. NFL going to Madrid next year. So, and we'll look at these openings for the head coaches. We started with 6, and New England hired one, but then Dallas is not bringing back McCarthy, so we'll have 6 again. All right, so we'll jump into the wild card weekend playoff game, Super Wildcard Weekend, right? And the exceptional one, these games got, when we had one good game, a lot of these were pretty ugly, and I think a lot of people were expecting to see some more competitive football, and we didn't. We just didn't get it, except in one game in Tampa Sunday night. But anyway, let's start off. We start with the 4 seed Houston Texans defeating the 5th seed Los Angeles Chargers 32-12. So CJ Stroud, 22 of 33, 282 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Joe Mixon, 25 carries, 106 yards, 1 touchdown. And Nico Collins, 7 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Justin Herbert had 14 or was 14 of 32, 242 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 picks. J.K. Dobbins, 9 carries for only 26 yards. And Lad McConkey in his playoff debut, 9 catches, 179 yards, 1 touchdown. This kid, he's just going to keep getting better. I'm really excited to be watching him for years to come. So there was an early 6-0 Chargers lead, and it looked like, okay, they weren't scoring touchdowns in the red zone, but it looked like, okay, the sooner or later it's going to pop. And they got the Texans. They're going to have the Texans, back on their heels. Well, not so fast because there was a broken play deep in the Texans' territory. It looked like the Chargers going to recover that fumble or make a deep sack and have good field position with the ball. Well, C.J. Stroud was able to scoop up that ball and make a big play downfield. I think it was to Nico Collins, not 100% sure, and they were able to get a touchdown on that drive. And from there, the Texans took over. I mean, 23 unanswered points. Obviously, a very disappointing showing for Justin Herbert, who's kind of battled this narrative that he's not clutch. And if I've been in the Herbert camp, but it is hard to argue in favor of Justin Herbert when you have a performance like that, especially since he was playing so well toward the end of the season. Um, yeah, I is he the guy? Yeah, I still think so. When you look at this Chargers team, they exceeded expectations this year. They were kind of ahead of schedule, right? A lot of us didn't think they had the horses to make it into the playoffs in the AFC, let alone the fifth seed. So we have to give some credit where credit is due there. And Justin Herbert's maybe not I know we see the talent and we want to put him up there with the Patrick Mahomes, with the Joe Burrows, with the Josh Allens, and the Lamar Jacksons. Maybe he's just not in that class. However, I do think if you do put the right team around him, um, we could see him have maybe the type of success where he could go on a deep playoff run as long as he doesn't have to put the team on his back. So the Texans, C.J. Stroud, good for them getting a back-to-back playoff wins. D'Amico Ryans, back-to-back playoff wins for him. So good for this organization. And we'll talk more about obviously their upcoming matchup and what that would mean if they were able to win that. All right. The other game on Saturday, the Baltimore Ravens, the 3 seed, beat their division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the 6 seed, 28-14. So Lamar Jackson, 16-21, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 81 yards on 15 carries. A monster game for Derrick Henry, 26 carries, 186 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Likely was the team's leading receiver with 3 catches and 53 yards. Russell Wilson, 20 of 29, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris was the leading rusher, but only 17 yards on 6 carries, and the Steelers only had 29 yards rushing total as a team. George Pickens, 5 catches, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. He probably did get robbed on an offensive pass interference call that may have helped give the Steelers a chance to get back in the game. I thought it was kind of bogus. I thought it was a great play by him. But anyway, they just were not going to beat the Ravens. I said before, they couldn't fall behind. The Steelers couldn't fall behind like this, and they could not let Derrick Henry run wild. Because when you let Derrick Henry run wild, that gives Lamar Jackson a lot of freedom. And when Lamar Jackson has a lot of freedom because he's got a workhorse back that's doing that kind of damage, it is lethal. It is lethal. I mean, the Ravens got out. I said at halftime, I was in a bar. I was next to the Steelers fan, and she said, we were talking. She had some hopes, but she had her doubts. And I looked over at her and I said, if the Ravens get the last score before the half, it's over. And it was. So I said 21-0. They're not coming back from that. And yeah, they only got 14 points total, so that proved to be correct. And that was 6 losses in a row for the Pittsburgh Steelers to end the season. I mean, they were 10-2, and if you count this playoff loss, 10-8. Yikes. So I mean, what does that mean for the quarterback? They signed Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to 1-year deals. Does one of them come back? It's kind of be hard. I thought Russell Wilson was going to be comeback player of the year, and this offense just took went on a downward spiral, and he was, old habits die hard. He was holding on to that football way too long. So anyway, that's a big decision for the Steelers. What are they going to do at quarterback? And then Mike Tomlin, you got to give this guy credit. He wins with quarterbacks that aren't very good, uh, but you know, and it's nice that he's never had a losing season. And what are we talking? 18 years as a head coach, 17, 18 years is phenomenal. But is it at some point is it going to get stale? And or is it going to get a little impatient in Pittsburgh because we know the standard, 6 Super Bowls, that 70s dynasty, the nice little run they had in the Roethlisberger era with Cowher and then with Tomlin. Uh, you know, when does the seat get a lot warmer for Tomlin? And I'm not saying he should go anywhere, but you know, I think it's some questions that are going to be asked. I mean, obviously he'll be back next year. Beyond that, who really knows? All right, Sunday's games. We had three of them, and we saw the 2 seed Buffalo Bills beat the Denver Broncos 31-7. Denver, the 7 seed. So Josh Allen, 20 of 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. James Cook, 23 carries, 120 yards, and 1 touchdown. Curtis Samuel, 3 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Bo Nix, 13 of 22, 144, and a touchdown. He was also the team's leading rusher with 43 yards on 4 carries, and Cortland Sutton, 5 catches for 75 yards. So this game was actually kind of close till the end of the third when Buffalo exploded, and it really started with this touchdown that Josh Allen made this amazing play on a 4th and 1 to throw a 24-yard touchdown pass to Ty Johnson. And it was very close, but he was able to get his knees down before his feet went out, secure the ball. The play stood, and then from there on, it was just Buffalo boat raced Denver right out of the playoffs. 31 unanswered points by the Bills because it was 7-0 Denver, and Buffalo scored 31 straight points. So the Bills have to feel good that they got a big, decisive home win. Can that carry over next week against Baltimore? And we're going to talk more about that soon. As for the Broncos, again, kind of like the Chargers, obviously a little bit different because Herbert's been around for a little while now, and there are high expectations with his talent and with the amount of years that he's played. So a little bit different scenario for the Chargers, maybe a little more disappointment there because of where Justin Herbert is in his career. But Denver overachieved. They ended their drought of not having a playoff berth, and hats off to Sean Payton and rookie Bo Nix. I thought Bo Nix was going to be another Brandon Weeden, and obviously this guy has a real shot of being Denver's franchise quarterback for years to come, and really showed he's got something. Showed me, that athleticism he showed in college is carrying over to the pros. So and he's just like the right quarterback for Sean Payton. So I think Denver's got to feel good about things as Kansas City's getting older, as the Chargers are going to have to figure some things out, and the Raiders are still a mess. So maybe, Denver kind of comes back into being that powerhouse in this division they used to be. I mean, that, obviously, they got a long way to go. We have a long way to go before we would see that. But I think the Broncos have to feel good about things. All right. The Philadelphia Eagles, the 2 seed, beat the Green Bay Packers, the 7 seed, 22-10. Jalen Hurts, 13 of 21, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, 25 carries, 119 yards, and the Slim Reaper Devontae Smith, 4 catches for 55 yards. Jordan Love, 20 of 33, 212 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 picks. Joshua Jacobs, 18 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown. Jaden Reed, 4 grabs for 46 yards. So, I mean, this game, the tone was set when Green Bay fumbled the opening kickoff and Philadelphia recovered it, right? You just knew kind of here the Packers might not be able to recover from this. Even though it was early in the game, doing something like that in Philadelphia, a hostile environment, which we'll talk about later, you know, and in the playoffs, right? Playoff environment, Philly, hostile. You add all that into the equation and you do something like that, it's going to be hard to recover. It really is, and not just that you're playing a really good football team in the Philadelphia Eagles that have a lot of talent. So you lose this turnover battle 4-0 on the road in the playoffs against a team with that kind of talent. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And Philly didn't even play that well. It's more that Green Bay played so bad. I mean, credit to the Eagles. They definitely did what they had to do, and their defense forced turnovers. But the offense of Philly was a little inconsistent and sloppy. Did not matter. It did not matter because Green Bay was so careless with the football. Now, I think it's just very disappointing to see a Matt LaFleur team, uh, you know, come into the playoffs, and usually they, are used to playing, opponents that had a superior regular season and, can go toe to toe with them, right? If not beat them. So this was really disappointing of a Matt LaFleur team to come out flat like this and be sloppy with the football. And for Jordan Love, who had played so great in the playoffs in his playoff debut last year, not only, the big win in Dallas where they just blew them out of the water, but also going to San Francisco and having that number one seed 49ers on the ropes, is very impressive. And, he comes into Philly and lays an egg. So that was a very disappointing. I think a lot of people, us, thought that this could have been a really good football game, and it was just not that. All right, well, let's talk about the best game of the wild card weekend, Super Wildcard Weekend on Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. So the Washington Commanders going to Tampa and upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-6 or 23-20. So Washington was the 6 seed, Tampa the 3 seed, and yeah. Well, here, let's read the numbers first. Jaden Daniels, 24 of 35, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also was the team's leading rusher, only 36 yards on 13 carries. Terry McLaurin, 7 grabs, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield, 15 of 18, 185 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving, 17 carries, 77 yards. And Mike Evans, what a beast, 7 grabs, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So, this game is what I thought it could be, right? Like, I felt like Tampa was the better team and that they should win. But that Jaden Daniels in his first playoff game, you just had a feeling he's that guy that could rise to the occasion if the opportunity is there. And Tampa had some miscues, right? They had a fumble that allowed Washington, I think, to take the lead, and they had a opportunity to maybe get a touchdown on their final possession. And I can't remember, they had a penalty or a broken play or something that prevented that, where they had to settle for a field goal to tie it up. So it's not that so much that Tampa played awful. I thought Baker Mayfield played with a lot of heart, as he always does. And, you just gave Jaden Daniels a little window, right? I talked about he only rushed for 36 yards, but remember, had Tampa stopped them on a third down, they could have called timeout, kicked the field goal. Washington would have kicked the field goal. Let's assume they make it, even though Zane Gonzalez's field goal doinked, from the distance it did. It bounced in. Credit to him. Let's assume that Washington kicks the field goal and makes it. Tampa now has at least a chance to, get and Chase McLaughlin, I believe, is their kicker, his field goal range. So that went away when Jaden Daniels was able to avoid the Tampa rusher on third down and rush for a first down. They could just kill the clock and kick the field goal. So, it's not that you always have to put up eye-popping numbers, which is not, passing numbers were very solid for his playoff debut, but the running, okay. 13 carries, 36 yards, underwhelming, but when you need a big play, he made it, and that's just the type of guy he is. And my heart breaks for Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. I mean, they just are so gritty. And I think Todd Bowles is, maybe he's not an elite head coach, but he's a solid football coach. And I think he was with the Jets, and he's proving that with the Buccaneers. The team is just missing something. I'm not sure what it is. Uh, but I like their moxie. I like their fight, and I know it's got to be heartbreaking to know that they were so close to advancing and going to they would have gone to Philadelphia and played a team that they'd beaten before. So it's a shame for them, but good for Washington to get their first a playoff win since the 2005 season. I mean, good for them and those fans. And, I had said, you know, often, I think I said it in the off season and maybe at the beginning of this season, it felt like the bloodstains were still in the carpet over, and Washington from the Daniel Snyder era. But I think, I may have said it mid-season, and I'm going to say it again. It feels like they've gotten the stains out, and good for them and their fans, uh, because they went through. I mean, they've been treated horribly, uh, for a couple of decades by Daniel Snyder, and now they have a good ownership group. They have a franchise quarterback. They have a solid coaching staff. I mean, got to be really happy for them after what they went through. All right, Monday Night Football. Dun, dun, or dun, 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 dun. We saw the 4 seed Los Angeles Rams just mop the floor with the 5th seed Minnesota Vikings, 27-9. So Matt Stafford, 19 of 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, 16 carries, 76 yards. He had 3 receptions, 16 yards, and a touchdown that he caught. Tyler Higbee, 5 catches for 58 yards. Sam Darnold, I mean, just we'll talk about that in a bit, but 25 of 40, 245 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Aaron Jones, 13 carries, 48 yards, and TJ Hawkinson, 5 grabs, 64 yards, and a touchdown. So really the story of this was Sam Darnold, he was seeing ghost again, like he was the back to being the Jets quarterback against a Bill Belichick's Patriots defense. It's like he was seeing ghosts. He was holding on to the ball just way, way too long. Took 9 sacks, 2 turnovers, including a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. This game was never close. The Rams took a 27-3 lead into it went into the third quarter, and yeah, I mean, it was over pretty quickly. And we'll talk more about Darnold in a bit, but what a disappointing ending for the Minnesota Vikings after such a great season. Remember what I said, the off season from hell, they overcame it. Kevin O'Connell, outstanding head coach. Love what he brings to a football team and what he's able to do in the face of adversity and how he's able to get his quarterbacks to play, above their skill set, above their talent level, if you will. Get the most out of them, I guess, would probably be the proper words. So it's very disappointing for the Vikings fans. Just all these great teams they've had over this century, right? And it never works out. A lot of talent, some really good coaches. It never works out. Not saying it won't, here in the future, but it's got to be incredibly frustrating for the Rams. I mean, kind of a little bit of an up and down year, but McVay is a veteran coach and he wins playoff games. And Matt Stafford has, he's a Super Bowl champion. And he looks like he's got. I always worry he's just one hit away from being done, because he's had back issues. But he, looks loose, and he's making good throws. And, give some credit to the Rams defense. I know Darnold was holding the ball on too long, but this was a defense that lost Aaron Donald. Uh, and, they're able to still get after the quarterback and still make plays. And I'm just, overall, I'm pretty impressed by the Rams. For them to find their way into winning the division and getting a playoff win, and maybe they could be a team that you don't want to play that could go on a deep run. We will talk about that. So, all right, let's get into the news. So, I'm going to talk about this Philly fan that was kicked out of the game. You've probably seen the viral video. And, he's calling a woman that's a Packers fan, seems to be rooting for her team. He's calling her the C word and just harassing her. Now, this was filmed by the girl's fiance. However, this guy's a blogger, this Packer guy. He's a blogger. And it kind of looks like I'm kind of hearing some things that they may have instigated this incident. Now, this Philadelphia fan, he's banned from games and he lost his job. And I really don't have any remorse. I mean, whether you were duped into it or not, you know, you can't act like that as an adult, as a professional. It's a football game. And my issue with Philly, I know a lot of good Philly fans. They want to cheer for their team. They're not into that crap, okay? And, I have a lot of respect for the organization overall. I'm not a fan of Nick Sirianni, and a lot of people aren't, and I'm sure some Eagle fans aren't. Um, and I've given my reasons for that. I don't like him yelling with opposing players and opposing fans. You're a leader of men. You got to act like it. Okay, so I don't like some of the things he does, his demeanor, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm a survivor of a Philadelphia as an opposing fan of a Philadelphia Eagles game. Okay, they just there's a group of fans there that take it too far, and the problem with there's okay, yeah, they're the main problem. Then there's a secondary problem. There's fans that play both sides that play both sides of the fence, right? Oh, why are Philly fans always called out? Look at these fans, look at those fans. Yeah, I don't like those fans that do that. But then they'll also say, oh, you don't come into Philly and mess with us like that. Look what's happened. So they play both sides of the coin. And those fans, in my opinion, are just as big of a problem almost as the ones actually doing the deeds because those fans are enabling those people. But credit to the Eagles organization for saying we're not going to tolerate this anymore. I mean, good for them. And I hope, that guy learns a lesson, right? I hope he does find employment again. I just hope I hope he learns a valuable lesson, right? And teaches others that. There's no tolerance for that. Now, the blogger, as far as he goes, if she and his fiance, if they did try to dupe this guy into that and film it, and they're getting likes and views and taking advantage of all that, then screw them. That's messed up too. You type of people deserve each other. Um, watch a football game, enjoy it, and then talk about the football. All right. I shouldn't even be talking about this, right? That's why people like you guys like to tune in here because we keep it real. It's about football, right? And if something's attached to football that may be a little controversial, we can address it, but we're going to do it in a way so we're not alienating people, right? There's a way to do things like that. So I love my audience and I appreciate you guys' feedback and that you tell me, hey, you bring it like the sports shows we used to get excited about during, when we were younger, right? We don't get all this junk, and I don't want to bring that here, right? So I owe it to you guys to do that, and I'm proud to do that. So thank you. All right, let's talk about what is going on with my Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so it looked like they were going to bring Mike McCarthy back. Okay, and I was kind of okay with that. I like McCarthy a lot better than some people do. I do have problems with his in-game management, but I think he's an underrated head coach, and I say underrated because he gets so much flack, whether it was, from his time in Green Bay, his time in Dallas. He's done some good things, and he can take backup quarterbacks. He's done it in Green Bay. He's done it in Dallas and win some games. All right. And the players like him. The players play hard for him. So, and I think he's a pretty good play caller. I thought he did a good job with Dak Prescott. I thought Dak's had his best years with McCarthy. Um, but apparently he and the Joneses could not agree to the terms going further, whether that was the length of the contract or whether that was he needed to bring in a play caller. I don't know, but they both decided to part ways. Now, this is kind of disappointing because for me to see the Joneses not let him interview with the Bears last week, right? Because he was technically still under contract for another week, and then they don't bring him back anyway. So that was kind of crappy, in my opinion. But it is what it is, and he's gonna get interviews, and maybe he lands another gig. All right, so and I wish him well. I think Mike McCarthy's a stand-up guy. I really like him a lot, and I really wish it would have worked out for him in Dallas. I thought it would have been all the crap he takes. I thought it would have been amazing for him to win a Super Bowl there because that would have put him in the Hall of Fame, and then he could have said, "How do you like me now?" And I'm rooting for him going forward. I really am. But let's talk about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and he is the hot name to come to Dallas and be the next head coach. A lot of people think this is nuts. I do not. I do not. Right? They're citing his 2 years at Colorado like that's his only thing on his resume. They're not even including his time at Jackson State. They're not including that he's been around the NFL game a long time, has a connection with a lot of players, right? He was an analyst for many, many years, right, on the NFL network. Obviously, he played. Deion's so smart. I mean, I get in arguments with people all the time that, they try to say, well, Dion, he didn't tackle. He's not the greatest corner of all time. Hogwash. Okay. You could just pull him off the street playing baseball and he could shut down a side of the field. Yeah, he didn't make, have the best tackling ability early in his career because he made business decisions while he was playing baseball. But you know what? Some of those years in Dallas, I saw him throwing his body at people. I saw a playoff game where he took a collision pretty hard. I think he hit somebody and had to leave the field. I think that was in Carolina, the '96 season. So Dion, is a lot tougher than people think. These people that, wipe the crumbs off their shirt, and yet he's going and, playing baseball and then flying to go play football, within, a 24-hour span. So, this guy is tough. Offense, defense, special teams. I mean, he excelled at defense. He excelled at special teams as a returner. And you know what? People might think, oh, yeah, they just brought him in on offense to be a burner. Actually, there were some games in Dallas where he had to be the one receiver because Michael Irvin was suspended, and he was playing that possession receiver role. It was pretty incredible. So this guy is a unicorn. You look what he did to Jackson State and HBCU football, and then coming to Colorado, his first season, and they really had a fast start. Remember, they beat TCU in the first game? I mean, Colorado football was garbage. They beat TCU in the first game. TCU was just coming off a national title appearance. So Dion made a big splash. They did fizzle early, but I thought they had a really good season this year when you consider where this program was, and for them to have a winning record, for them to be in a bowl game, for Shador Sanders, his son, to possibly be the first pick in the draft, and for Travis Hunter to win the Heisman. Look at what Dion's doing. And I like him over any candidate, and I'll tell you why. Because I think he can handle Jerry Jones. No, and when I say handle Jerry Jones, not put up with him, I think he can handle him. I think he can smooth him over, right? And keep Jerry at bay and have command of that football team, because when those kids on that football team, because I'm saying kids, because, well, they're a lot younger than me and they're a lot younger than Dion, right? They know the legend of prime time, and I think they're going to be starstruck, and they're not going to want to disappoint Dion. So I would love this. It's a high risk, high reward. It might not work out, and he might not get hired, but I would roll the dice on this because Dallas needs something different, not a coach that Jerry is going to just smother and neuter, and that'll be all. He can't do that to Dion. Dion has always done things his way. Jerry, it's time to bring prime time home to Big D. All right. So Mike Vrabel was hired by the New England Patriots. So remember what I said when they fired Gerard Mayo after one season, right? That they were, I don't know that they necessarily wanted to do that, but I think they saw a candidate that they wanted to have, and that was Mike Vrabel. So maybe that hard playing story, after losing to the Arizona Cardinals, instead of watching film, playing cards, that may have just been something they kind of threw out there to make it seem like, well, that's the reason we're letting this guy go. But really, I think they just wanted to hire Mike Vrabel, right? They're bringing him home, right? And, he won rings there. He, knows that Belichick way, but unlike the other people, I don't think he ever coached under Belichick. I don't think so, but he obviously played under him, and he relied on him to do, different things, play offense, right? In red zone situations and catch touchdown passes. So, um, but he's not that like Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels, Belichick guy that's going to come in and thinks he's Belichick. Mike Vrabel's his own guy. He proved that in Tennessee, and he did some good things in Tennessee. I was surprised when they let him go, but I think this is a great fit for the Patriots, and you already got the quarterback in Drake May, so I really like it. Speaking of Mike Vrabel's former teams, the Titans hire a GM, Mike Borgonzi. He was from the Kansas City front office, so he takes over as the general manager for the Titans. The Ran Carthon was fired. He's the general manager of the Titans now. So they're going to hold on to Brian Callahan. So he must like Brian Callahan, and they have the first pick in the draft. So I think they really want to do something with that, whether it's a Shador Sanders, a Travis Hunter, or they trade for more picks. We shall see. But we'll keep an eye on that. I want to talk about Sam Darnold. I think it is the end of him in Minnesota. Now, a lot of people will say, well, look at the numbers he put up. Look at the wins he has. I just think he turned into a pumpkin, too early, you know, uh, heading into the postseason, right? He went to Detroit and he turned back into the Jets. Sam Darnold, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Sam Darnold. Good for him. Maybe he wins that Comeback Player of the Year award. I think is a good chance he does, and he's going to land a bridge quarterback or a starting role somewhere. I just think the Vikings have J.J. McCarthy. They have a great head coach that can get a lot out of him, and Kevin O'Connell. And I think they've just gone as far as they can with Sam Darnold. And I think, he just kind of proved, yeah, he can win you. He could do some good things for you in a regular season with a team around him. But when you push all the chips in the middle on him, it's, you're going to end up folding. So, not to criticize Sam Darnold, I hope he, lands somewhere and continues to build off what he did. Just don't think he's that guy that can, you know, carry you to the promised land, let alone a playoff win. All right. The NFL will be going to Madrid next year. The Dolphins will host the first game ever out there. So the NFL just, spreading, uh, their brand around the world. I don't mind it too much. I just don't put a Super Bowl there or a postseason game, and we're good. But a regular season game, a few regular season games here and there, that's fine. If more people in the world are enjoying football, then it's a better place. So, all right, the head coaching openings are as follows: the Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys, as we mentioned, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Las Vegas Raiders, New Orleans Saints, and New York Football Jets. So, we'll see what happens this weekend. Who loses and who, what candidates will be available. Uh, to be hired. If Washington loses with Cliff Kingsbury, if Detroit's upset, their coordinators, Ben Johnson, Eric Glenn, um, the Bills are knocked out by the Ravens, Joe Brady. So not Todd Monken if the Bills knock out the Ravens. So just thinking of some different names, Kellen Moore. For the Eagles, there's probably somebody on the Rams. Remember, for a while, it was anyone that is close to Sean McVay. Anyone who has a meeting, anyone who touches Sean McVay was getting a job. So maybe we see that again, that kind of trend. Anyway, all right. So let's go into previewing these divisional round games. A lot of people I know their favorite weekend of pro football is the divisional round. So this is great. We got divisional football, and then we got the national championship game with Ohio State and Notre Dame. And what a story for either one of those schools that win that game, right? I mean, you're talking, like I said, talking about Ryan Day being people in the media, alumni, whatever, wanted him fired for losing to Michigan, and he's one win away from a national title. And the Irish, I mean, it's been a long time for them since they've won a national championship. And here they are, with Marcus Freeman just one win away. Uh, so either way, I think we're getting a great story out of that. But let's talk about great stories in the pros. Hopefully, we have some this weekend. Start Saturday with the 4 seed Houston Texans at the 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. Kickoff is 4:30 Eastern Time. You can watch this game on ESPN ABC or stream on ESPN Plus. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman with the call. Kansas City is a 8.5 point favorite, over under a 41.5 points. All these numbers I'm giving are according to Fox Bet. So week 16, we did see the Chiefs beat the Texans 27-19. It was nice if you were looking to see more out of the Chiefs, kind of really not just eking wins out and kind of being a little more decisive. They showed that against the Texans. Now the Texans had a lot of penalties, and I know the NFL's conspiracy theorists will say that the refs are all in for the Chiefs, and I'm not going to get into that. It's just an exhausting argument. But I think the Chiefs are really starting to find their groove there, right? And then they were able to go into Pittsburgh and really handle them. So they laid it down against Denver. They had a week off, you know, rest, rust. I think the rest is going to benefit a veteran team coached by Andy Reid, led by Patrick Mahomes. I really do. Um, Now for the Texans, what would this mean? They've never advanced to the divisional round. So I get it all the time. Somehow my Cowboys are so awful, yet there's still the measuring stick, right? And Houston's had more success since becoming a franchise in the 21st century, winning more playoff games than the Cowboys. I mean, good for you. Hang a banner, okay? Let's see you get to a conference championship game. Obviously, we can't. Let's see you do it. All right. And then I'll give you a little more kudos. And I'll give you kudos for what you're doing, for being not a very well-run football team for many years and now having some success and some consistent success. So, I'm happy for you in that regard, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. All right. Um, these teams have met before. Rewind, I want to say it was the 2019 season when the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes went on that first run to beat the Niners in the Super Bowl. They played the Texans, I believe, in a divisional game and were trailing 24-0. And Deshaun Watson um, led that whatchamacallit, Houston team back then, right? That's when Deshaun Watson was all the rage and full of hope and promise. That seems like forever ago. But the Chiefs were able to rally and take the lead before the half ended, and I think they ended up putting a 50 burger up. So it was a wild playoff game for sure. Obviously, a lot has changed for the Texans, especially now with CJ Stroud at the helm and D'Amico Ryans being the head coach. And, do they have a shot? I think they have a puncher's chance, but it's just going to be very tough to beat. Like I said, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, when they've had their veteran team, I don't think they're going to have rust. I think rest is really going to benefit them. Um, but I'm intrigued to see because Kansas City has been, kind of for most of the regular season, walking a tight rope, eking out these wins. So can, Houston find that, their Achilles heel and take advantage of that and have to make them, claw and fight for a win? We shall see. All right. So we go over to the NFC game on Saturday night. The 6 seed Washington Commanders at the 1 seed Detroit Lions, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady calling this one. The Detroit Lions are a 9.5-point favorite. This game has an over-under of 55. When I think of these two teams and their playoff history, you got to go back to the 1991 NFC Championship game, right? The Lions had beaten the Cowboys the previous week. It was their own first playoff win since 1957, and they would not win another one until the 2003 season. So that franchise had one playoff win in like 66 years. And now, they got a couple last year, and now they want a few more this year. Hint, hint, they get a few more. They're Super Bowl champions, right? A few means three. Okay. But the 1991 NFC Championship game, obviously they lost it. The Barry Sanders' Lions lost to the Washington then Redskins that went on to win Super Bowl 26, a 14-2 season for them under head coach Joe Gibbs. And it was the last time they had a regular season of 10 plus wins until this year. The 12-5 Washington Commanders, led by, first year head coach with the team, Dan Quinn. Obviously, he had some success in Atlanta as a head coach, and rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. Do the Commanders have a chance against this Detroit juggernaut? They're going to need some things to go. Like, how they got some good bounces in Tampa, like the fumble by Baker Mayfield, missed tackle on Jaden Daniels to continue a drive. The Bucks, not able to, get a touchdown on that last drive, things like that. They're going to need a lot more of that in this game. And, Detroit, they had to play that last regular season game against the Vikings with it all on the line for the 1 seed, and you can say Minnesota choked and Sam Darnold choked, but they came out swinging. They have a week of rest. They're not going to be rusty. Dan Campbell and his staff have their finger pulse on this team. So could the Commanders pull off the upset? There is a chance. Yes, there's always a chance. However, they're going to need a lot to go their way. And I don't know, against a team that runs the ball well, a team that's got a hell of a passing attack, a team that's bringing back David Montgomery to be in the backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs. Okay. Um, a Washington defensive line that's a little banged up, but Deron Payne is going to play with his broken hand. He's going to play. Um, you know, I just think it's going to be too much. And I know there'll be some Washington fans there, but that crowd is going to be fired up. They're going to be fired up. And I you know, if there's a chance, Detroit's had a lot of injuries on their defense. However, Aaron Glenn has done a hell of a job as defensive coordinator, squeezing blood out of a stone and getting the most out of this team. So, um, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I just don't see it for Washington, and that's not a knock on them. They've had a great season, but I think Jane Daniels could show something in this game and kind of like you remember when Michael Vick played that national championship game against Florida State, and they lost by multiple scores, but they said, man, a lot of guys said because of how thrilling Michael Vick was and what he brought to that big game stage, they said, I wish I could go back and change my Heisman vote, right? Even though Peter Warrick was on the victorious team, people said I would have changed my vote to Michael Vick. Um, so, yeah, I think he may show something, right? He'll show something, but I just think it's going to be too much to handle for the Commanders. All right. Sunday, the Los Angeles Rams 4 seed at the Philadelphia Eagles 2 seed. So 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This game could be streamed on NBC, or I'm sorry, this game will be shown on NBC, streamed on Peacock. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth with the call. Sunday Night Football crew. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so the Eagles are a 6-point favorite, and there's an over-under on this one of 43.5. So week 12, these teams met at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and the Eagles handled the Rams no problem, 37-20. Saquon Barkley had a huge game. And it looked like the Rams, every time they tried to get back in it, Philly just, counterpunched until they knocked them out. And so will it be different this time? I think the Rams may have a better chance the second time around. Not saying I think the Eagles have the better chance to win, but I think the Rams would have a better chance the second time around than they did in I guess it was week 12, I think. Even though they're on the road, I just think playoffs, McVay, Stafford, I think Puka Nacua could have a really big game, even though this Philly defense in secondary is doing very well. I just Kyron Williams might be able to get loose. I think they could make it a game, but I think at the end of the day, in the hostile environment of the link and the playmakers that the Eagles have, despite what you think about Nick Sirianni, he's got some really good coordinators, and Nick Sirianni's going to go for it, in the tough spots, right? They're going to go for it. They got that tush push, right? That just seems pretty much unstoppable. So I still I like the Eagles in this one, but I think the Rams do have a chance to come out with an upset. I could see it happening. Now, this also keep note, might have some inclement weather, may have some snow. It's going to be cold, a low of 18 degrees. So, does that play a factor in this one? I mean, Matt Stafford did play a lot of years in the NFC North. I don't think, and I believe he's played a snow game in Philly, if I'm not mistaken, if he wasn't hurt that time when they had that crazy snow game, right? I think it was like Nick Foles and LaShawn McCoy, Megatron for the Lions. So if he wasn't hurt and he played, so it might not be a problem. But yeah, range, snow, shine. I like Philly here. Rams got a shot though. All right, let's go to the final game the 3 seed Baltimore Ravens at the 2 seed Buffalo Bills. This game can be seen on CBS or streamed on Paramount Plus. Jim Nance and Tony Romo calling this one. The Ravens on the road opening as a 1-point favorite. Over under of 51.5. Now, we know one of the reasons why the Ravens are favored because back in week 4, they just annihilated the Buffalo Bills 35-10. Derrick Henry just ran all over them. And, the Bills were off to a really hot start. Baltimore had lost their first 2 games. They were able to get out of Dallas with a win. And then they came home, probably didn't want to fall to 1-3 and lose to another AFC team, but that did not happen. They just blanked the Bills. Now this game is in Buffalo, and again they're going to have there's probably going to be weather conditions, a low of 13 degrees, possible snow, and Zay Flowers is doubtful for this game. So if he's not able to go, that's a significant loss. It's not the end of the world, but a significant loss for the Ravens because he's a real playmaker. This game is big for both of these quarterbacks that want to shed that narrative that they can't win the big one, right? We know they can dazzle us. We know they can stack a lot of wins in the regular season, but can they, get to a Super Bowl and kind of, change that narrative and just put them in a higher class? Now, I was talking to my buddy Brandon Halsey, and he's making the point, well, look at some of these quarterbacks that won a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, you could say Jeff Hostetler. I think he mentioned somebody else. I can't remember. I think it's important for us to realize Brad Johnson was a Pro Bowl quarterback when he won that Super Bowl, even though maybe he didn't have a long, consistent career of being great. He was a really good quarterback when he won that Super Bowl. Oh, Brandon said Mark Rippon, who was a good quarterback that year, too. So, I mean, they just weren't consistently good throughout or great or good, whatever you want to call it, throughout their career. But we're talking today's NFL, and we're talking Patrick Mahomes, right? And we're talking, who's over the last 5 years, who are the quarterbacks to win it? Like Patrick Mahomes, Matt Stafford, and Tom Brady. That's it. And it's time for one of these AFC quarterbacks to take things over and enter that category, right? It wasn't fun unless you're a New England fan, wasn't fun for Tom Brady to always win it. It was fun when Peyton Manning got in there and won one, right? Because that made it more exciting when you had a Manning versus Brady, because they were both champions and you knew both were capable of getting to the next level. So this is huge, I think, for both these quarterbacks, because if they, one of them's going to win the MVP. I think it's going to be Josh Allen, and if he loses, it's going to be, well, he won the MVP, but look at Lamar, he advanced. And then, it might kind of be the same thing for Lamar too. Now, there'll be more time to debate this later, but let's talk about this matchup. The Bills, the keys for them is like I said, you might not be able to stop Derrick Henry, but can you contain him? Can you keep him from going over 150 yards? When he gets in like the 180 territory, forget about it, because like I said, that means Lamar can just tee off on you, run, throw. He's got it made in the sun if Derrick Henry is going to run all over you like that. And then also too, you can't be too Josh Allen reliant. Going to need something from James Cook. You're going to need all the pass catchers to step up. Obviously, good blocking on the offensive line. So, and the defense maybe getting a key stop or two to get him the ball back. So I think those are the keys for the Bills. Now they're at home. They're going to have the home crowd. I think they have some momentum, and I think this is going to be a really good football game, and it could be anybody's ball game. I'm excited to see it. I really am. All right. Well, that is all I have for this week's edition. Enjoy the games, everybody.